vivir en la calle.
Nelson.
Hello, Jeffrey. How's it going?
Oh, it's going
Morning.
great. How are you this morning?
Doing good, doing good.
Oh,
Just getting myself together.
Thank you for joining me today. Fantastic documentary, important, relevant. A la Calle, hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah.
Just an amazing documentary. And so first I want to congratulate you on a fantastic film, eye-opening. Fascism is on the rise in the world. Philippines, Cuba, Belarus. We escaped our own brush in the last 4 years, in my opinion, here in America. A Maduro regime, how quickly did things change for the people of Venezuela?
Actually, it wasn't overnight. I think it started with Chavez a bit, and I think the problem was on the economic side. As soon as the price of oil dropped, then I think it's when we started seeing the real problem. When Maduro got into power, that's when the autocracy that you start seeing the authoritarian hand that he was bringing, and I think the moment he got elected, it was already obvious, that he was going to be like that. But I think the general population started seeing it around maybe 2017 when the big protests started happening.
I don't understand dictators. How can they refuse their own people? No water, no electricity. People are starving. They refuse their own eyes. I mean, how is this sensible ruling? They know they can't sustain that. So I've always been puzzled by their attitude and the way they treat their own people.
Yeah. It's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate because 6 million Venezuelans have left as of now. That's a high percentage of the population, making us the highest number of immigrants, I think, in the last 100 years in the Americas, and then the highest in the world right now outside of a war zone. So the numbers don't lie. The population is unhappy with the way the government is treating them. And I think the way the Maduro structure his government is a reflection of himself also. So we don't have any guarding for citizens to feel safe, and that's very sad. There's nowhere, there's no there's no safety that you could bring up on yourself, starting from the police all the way to the government, courts, I don't know, anything that you could think of. So it's very unfortunate.
And you filmed this over 3 years. No shortage of Venezuelans to speak out against inflation, food shortages, political repression. Which of the citizens made the most impact on you in your documentary?
For me personally, Nixon Leal was, he became a dear friend. He was a subject that we were searching for a while. We started with 20 subjects. Well, we started with Leopoldo. If you want, we could get into that a bit later, but we started with the story of Leopoldo. Eventually, we wanted to bring other stories that could help us tell the general story of Venezuela. The story of Nixon was a mix of economic, but also basically the voice of the people in a way that was less political, but more kind of protest driven. And as soon as we understood that there was this group of kids that were guarding the general population, that were basically fighting the police brutality, we started investigating, and then we invited one of the youth, and then he seemed to be a leader of a sector, and then we realized that there was another leader above him, and then another leader. But because there was a lot of police brutality, also incarceration against the will, into political prisons for these youth that are not politically tied to any party or anything. Then we realized that they had a safety guard against any type of inclusion of any type. So eventually we got to Nixon, and we saw that he was just an average student that wanted to raise his voice, but he was just determined, The story of Nixon is very, very sad because his dad was military. He was, I think he was just a soldier, but he got killed in some type of, I don't know, command. And then he was raised with his mom, but he left his house when he was 12. So he was just the representation of what youth under Chavez, and the economic destruction of the country had to go through to survive, and then what came after, which is the the lack of opportunities and the basically like the anger that youth had against the government because of those lacks of opportunities, and then how the government responded to that, you know. So he didn't just protest because he wanted, you know, he couldn't afford to go to school and live at the same time in a city like Caracas because he comes from a small city. And I could go on and on and on about his
Right.
story, you know.
Well, I was while I was watching your documentary, I was concerned for your safety, the consequences of you documenting these events, interviewing these people, because you are a target when you're in the middle of these crowds or when you're doing interviews. Was there any, circumstances where you feared for your safety, or were you put on a government list, or because it was extremely dangerous filmmaking?
Yeah, we were very fortunate to be surrounded by a team that was very agile on the ground very early on, because we took this documentary initially with the story of Leopoldo Lopez, so we knew that we were going to be targeted because he's basically followed everywhere. He was actually in prison when we started this, and we decided to first start this project with because I'm from Venezuela, so I used to go back and forth a lot, and I have a lot of colleagues who are very skilled. So we put a team of journalists and a team of filmmakers, and when we needed them, we rotated them. And everybody knew they were getting into this, but everybody was already filming in the street, you know. So when we came in, we proposed let's just make this project bigger, you know. So we started working from far, and then we realized that we could move very quick like that, and basically rotate teams, and then like move the hard drives in safer locations depending on where we needed to film. And you know, we actually avoided risk. You know, nothing really happened to us, to our team, but everybody that was involved decided to take a stand, you know, for sure against the government. I
Very,
don't know if I could go back to Venezuela right now.
I was going to say they're very aware of your presence in this film, I'm sure. So
Yeah,
you were saying how 6 million have left Venezuela, but I think the youth are key to change in Venezuela. Is that correct? Would you assume that?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, to any country.
And yeah, and I love your, I think the battle cry for your documentary, "We need to remain in the streets." I mean,
Yeah.
I just love that line in that moment. How is the support today locally and in the country? Is it stalling, or what's the mood in Venezuela right now
The support for the film or for like the change?
for change?
Yeah, it's stalling 100%. Right now there's negotiations going on in Mexico. Um, I don't know what's going to happen after this. I think the opposition is gaining some ground, but you know, I think history tells itself. It's been like 6 negotiations by now, so I'm not sure. I'm not too hopeful of this part of the negotiation, but I am hopeful in the international pressure that keeps happening. It keeps growing. There's more humanitarian aid coming in. So I don't know. It's a lot of ups and downs, you know. Every time people come out and protest, then something happens where the tension gets like dissolved a little bit, and then everybody goes home, you know. And obviously there's casualties and political prisoners, you know. There's still like 300, oh, like 250, 215
Also, media.
political prisoners.
The media, I mean, it's pretty much vanished here in America. We haven't seen any more reports on Venezuela, any more stories. One out of four Americans are familiar with the crisis. But is there a call to action, Americans or anyone who views a la Calle, that can do something about it?
Yeah, I think usually humanitarian aid is one of the best things for Venezuela, because the health system is very broken. That's just kind of like, if you want to like contribute, that's the best, you know, solution to get something in return. But I think bigger than that is we wanted to bring awareness to also the immigrant crisis that's happening, because we don't really see too many, like, unless you meet somebody, you know, that's from Venezuela or a country at aid like Haiti, you know what's happening in Haiti. You don't really get to hear those stories, you know. So I think just being aware that sometimes people that migrate have to do it because they have to, you know, they don't really have a choice. And I'll tell you this much, like, the people that are crossing the border in Mexico and are from Venezuela, they're going through their last resource. The fact that they don't want to stay in Latin America says a lot, about like the fear to be like to set ground in a country that maybe has no future. So I don't know. I think awareness is definitely the most important thing for me at this point.
That's what Calle is all about, is bringing awareness. Nelson,
Yeah.
congratulations on a sobering film streaming on HBO Max. Thank you so much for joining me today, and
Thank you.
let's talk again soon. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.